Welcome to the Focus on Why podcast. I'm Amy Rowlandson and I ask my guests one simple question. Why? Focusing on the importance of why, I share with you the relatable, uplifting and inspiring conversations I have with people from all walks of life. This podcast will encourage you to focus on your why to enable and empower you to achieve the success you desire. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why. So today on the Focus on Why podcast, I have the pleasure of Louise Reynolds, who is joining me today from Property Venture. Welcome, Louise.
Thanks very much, Amy. Delighted to be here.
So Louise is the founder and director of this wonderful boutique property consultancy. Tell me what it's all about.
Well, Property Venture, I set up, about 13, 14 years ago because I wanted to help investors buy property. And originally when I set it up, I helped Brits buy abroad. So in continental European countries like Spain, France, oddly enough, Poland. People don't often think about Poland, but I invested there myself. And so thought it was a good investment opportunity. So I help people find the right investments or holiday homes to meet their needs. And latterly, over the last few years, I've been helping expats abroad, which they could be anywhere in the world, Indonesia, United Arab Emirates, even in Europe, Singapore and those pockets of expats invest in the UK. So they tend to be more investing to build up a retirement pot and love having property as part of that plan. So my start point is finding out what it is that they want, understanding their needs, and I've got a wide network of suppliers across the UK and can usually provide a lot of properties, with particularly healthy yields, particularly in the Midlands and up north, or if they're looking for a bit more capital growth and a slightly bigger budget, in the southeast, because I'm based in Surrey. I can identify pockets of affordability, which can be quite surprising for some, which offer, again, decent yields, but much more scope for capital growth as well. So, and then when I'm helping people in continental Europe, I've got a very wide network that I built up over, a good number of years now, where I work with local in-market agents. So if someone's got a particular area in mind, like Costa Blanca or Costa del Sol, I can help identify and also just help guide on what's realistic for the budget they've got. I did talk to someone recently who wanted a holiday home, who had one particular budget, and there was a bit of a mismatch between their ambition of where they wanted to be in Spain and their budget. So I can give guidance on that as well, about where the more affordable areas are in a country like Spain and France too.
Wow, there's a lot of passion coming out of that job or that business. It's not.
Yeah, I suppose I've always been very international in what I've done from a very early age. I've always done lots of traveling, and I've been to all of these countries. I've traveled pretty extensively, and so it's lovely to be able to help other people buy in countries that I've been to, where I've been and checked out properties, and been to a lot of the areas where people are interested in buying. So I just love travel, love property, love helping people and building relationships and helping them get what they want too.
So have you always had a passion for the work that you've been doing in this way?
Well, when I set out, I have, but I've not always done this. I've done other things before that. But when I set up Property Venture, I wanted to do things a little bit differently from my observations of the property market when I first came into it. I saw a lot of pushy salespeople sort of doing product push. No matter what someone wanted, they had this one product that was ideally suited for them. And I don't know about you, but I really dislike being on the receiving end of that. So I kind of wanted to offer a service that people like me would want, where I'm not having something forced upon me. I like to find out what someone or a potential investor wants before thinking what's the best way of finding a solution for that. And sometimes I have that readily to hand through the network that I have. Sometimes it takes a bit more digging around and finding the right property for them. So I have a passion in building relationships with people and working with them to get the right property for them. So that's my passion around it, and doing it a bit differently, from what I see as a number of other operators, or did do when I first came into the business.
So what were you doing before you set up this company 14 years ago?
I started out my career. Well, I've got a degree in marketing and French, so that I suppose helps my European credentials. But I started out from university as a graduate trainee for a drinks firm, which no longer exists. It got broken up. A company called Seagram, which at the time had drinks brands like Captain Morgan Rum, Chivas Regal Whiskey, Moon Cordon Rouge Champagne, Martell Cognac, Sandeman Port, loads of different brands. And so I started out in my marketing and sales career there, learning the ropes of how to be a brand and marketing manager. And from there, moved into financial services, spent some time at one of the leading building societies, at Nationwide Building Society. So got a little bit of an understanding of financial services and how the markets work, and went back into drinks from there, worked for a company called Remy Cointreau Group, where I had it sounds very glamorous actually, I was marketing manager on the champagne brands, Krug Champagne and Charles Heidsieck Champagne. So that was actually a very fun time before I moved into management consultancy. And the reason why I moved into management consultancy was when I worked at Nationwide Building Society, I was seconded to work on a management consultancy project as one of the members of staff, and really enjoyed the project work. It was all about looking at new product launches, new service launches, and mapping out the whole process of how it was done internally at Nationwide Building Society and how it could be done better. And so I really like that collaborative nature of working to achieve a better outcome for the organisation. And that's what gave me a flavour for going into management consultancy afterwards. And I started out with a specialist marketing consultancy called Marketing Improvements. It got taken over, but I had over a decade worth of time with them, working on sales and marketing assignments, advising big blue chip companies on how to improve their sales and marketing, specific assignments, running workshops, helping organisations change. So yes, I've had a varied career, and each of those stages of my career have given me something different. But I suppose I got to the stage of, like a lot of us ladies, having a family and wanting something that fit a bit better around that. Because anyone that's been in management consultancy will know that the hours can be pretty lengthy, and there's a lot of pressure. Quite often you've got an hourly rate or a day rate, and you have to put in the time for that. And sometimes you end up working really, really long hours, and everything is very time dependent. And even if a consultancy assignment is being priced up in one particular way, if things are going wrong, you've got to work twice as hard to pull it all back. So it just meant I was working very, very long hours. And living in Surrey, commuting in, and with a young family, it created untold pressures for me. I knew I had to make some changes. I think I mentioned to you earlier on, I just got to the stage where I found myself one day in our utility room, just, I suppose, having a complete meltdown. Just found myself on the floor, just sobbing, and just didn't quite know why. And it was only afterwards I thought, I've got to make some changes. This isn't the way for me to be leading my life. And so things unfolded over a number of years after that. But that's what sowed the seed in my mind about doing something different and making changes. So that was a big, I suppose, crossroads in my life where I just knew I had to change.
And I think that's the same for so many people, as particularly women, where the body actually says enough. It says enough, stop, look at what's happening, and is this right for you? And you have to notice it. You can't ignore that. And so you did.
Yeah. I suppose I was also a bit caught up in that, you can have it all. You can do the career thing, you can have a family, and maybe if I was living in London, literally on the doorstep of the business, it might have worked better. But I just found that it didn't. And both my husband and I worked and we each shared the childcare. We didn't have like a nanny or anything like that. We were doing it all ourselves. And yeah, maybe if I'd have had home help, that might have been a bit different. But we shared things. So one of us would go into work early and come home at a decent time to pick up the children, and vice versa. So we each did one end of the day where there was flexibility for our work, but that wasn't really even enough in management consultancy, because there'd be 8 o'clock meetings and there'd be 6 or 7 o'clock meetings, and you'd have to be there at both ends of the day, which I found very difficult to deal with. So yeah, that was just a crunch point really for me.
So that was where the concept for property venture was born.
Well, the seedlings were. I kind of knew I wanted to get into property. I didn't have property venture in my head at that stage. I knew I wanted to get into property. And like most people have read that book that everybody does, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. And I made my husband read it. And I said, I don't know what, but I just know that I want to do something in property. And so over time, I started to crystallize a bit more about what that might be. And I'd also made myself a promise that, it was around about that time, my daughter, who was one, was seriously ill. She had a life-threatening illness. And I made myself a promise at the time that I was going to be there for the children. And I suppose that's one thing I feel really, really proud of. I've honoured that promise. And Property Venture was a way of doing that. It was about shaping a business in property that I'd already decided, I wanted to do something in. That I could have a business that would fit around my family because it was my business, and I could set it up and run it how I wanted. So in the early days, it was, very small steps, because it was about creating the company, the website, the social media, the SEO, all of that. And because I was doing it part-time, it took me a lot longer to do than anybody else would probably do it. And because I was on my own as well. Because I was originally going to be setting up Property Venture with another lady. Because what I did was some experimenting. Before I got to Property Venture, I worked with a couple of different property businesses with ladies who I knew. One was a lady who worked in Florida, and started doing some business development with her. And then worked with a lady who had a Spanish property estate agency. And so I started to learn the ropes there. And so I originally thought, well, I could set up more of an investment-related company, Property Venture, with someone else. And then they backed out at the last minute. And that was a bit of a shock for me, because I have sales and marketing skills and, some business nous. But I didn't have anywhere near enough property experience. And for me, that would have been a winning combination. But then she backed out at the last minute, literally, just as we were meant to be going to the accountants to form the limited company. And my accountant said, well, so, okay, if you're here on your own, I think he thought, well, this is a waste of time. Let's call the meeting in 20. And I said, well, no, I'm still going to do it. And so he was a bit surprised, and I think I surprised myself as well. But so that's where I sort of coined the phrase of, when I got into property business, I went up a learning cliff, not a learning curve, because it just wasn't as I expected it would be. I had just had a lot to grapple with setting it up to begin with. And so I set it up 13 years ago, and it seems an awful long while. So I've been in the business a long while, but those early years, there was quite a number of things that I had to get to grips with before, I could move forwards.
But you did it.
I did it, yes. I mean, it's still a journey, because there's still a lot more I want to do to get it where I have always envisaged it being. But yes, I did it.
So your utility room is probably your favourite room right now.
Not really.
In terms of it helped you.
Well, it certainly brought things to a head. Yes, I think I was being pushed too far from all quarters. So it was a bit of an epiphany of sorts, and that promise that I made myself, really, about my family. When you're facing those situations, and certainly not what you expect with a 1-year-old as well. But I've honoured that promise. I've done absolutely everything there. So now's the time for pushing forwards with the business, having been there for my family, and honouring that promise to be there with them through their early schooling years, and making sure that they had a solid foundation and rocks to build on.
And I see how that means so much to you, because you got quite emotional about that when you were saying it, and it almost caught you by surprise again that this is why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, that it is one of the drivers, because it was originally sort of set up to fit around them, but it was also, I've always felt that I've had a successful business in me. There's sort of like a gut thing as well, so it's about my family, but also my gut. And some people think that it's a bit weird, but I have mentioned this to one or two people, and they say, well, yeah, I know what you mean. So this uncomfortable feeling in my stomach, which sort of drives me on as well. So I want to make the business a success to fund a lifestyle for my family and make them proud. But also, I've got something to prove to myself, which is, I suppose, this sort of feeling in my stomach, which I've had from a very, since childhood. I suppose it's about ambition. It's about fulfilling ambition. It's about a drive forwards to be the best person and achieve what you're capable of achieving, and doing everything to make that happen. If that articulates it well, I don't know.
But why do you think it's important for you to prove that and to achieve that? What is it that's...
There was a quote that's so meaningful for me, and it's, I suppose, that I'm not a religious person. There's something I sort of connect with on a spiritual level, but it's also, there was a quote, and I don't know whether I get this right, but when you're at the end of your life, on your last day, there's a saying that on your last day on earth, you meet the person you could have become. And for me, I want that person I could have become to actually be me. I would hate to have come to the end of my life and see this vision of a person I could have been. I really feel strongly that I really want to make that happen, so that there aren't any regrets. There's not a disconnect between what I could be, what I could have fulfilled, and what I actually did. So I kind of feel that I have to try things, and this age-old saying, pushing yourself out your comfort zone to achieve things that I've not achieved yet, to make sure that person that I meet at the end is me and not someone different.
That's lovely. I think that's really powerful. And what sort of things do you do to get out of your comfort zone?
I spend a lot of my time using nervous energy. It goes back to my very early working career. I read a book, which is a very old book now, and it's probably not the trendy thing for people to put on their recommended reading list, but it's called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Susan Jeffers. And I read that very, very early on in my career. And it kind of defines what I do, which is probably why I'm always so exhausted, because I'm always feeling the fear and doing it anyway, which just uses up a hell of a lot of nervous energy. And one of the things that I think exemplifies that over the last few years, I actually get very, very nervous public speaking, standing up in front of people. But I realised that actually I really need to get known, for people to get to know me a bit more, my business a bit more, to feel comfortable with talking to me about property investing needs or how I might be able to help them. And so, yeah, just simply doing that, getting out on the speaking circuit, presenting, has just filled me with fear and dread. But I have done it anyway. The first time that I did it was just inside, was just like volcanic molten emotions and nerves. But it's quite interesting that the external side of me, people comment that that's not what they're seeing on the outside, which I suppose I'm thankful for, because I don't want anybody seeing what's going on the inside. I suppose it's like the swan gliding along the top, and with your feet sort of scrambling madly under the water. But yeah, so I still get nervous, but it's gradually gets easier the more that I do, and then I can push boundaries again and feel more discomfort. But I still use up a lot of nervous energy and still end up feeling exhausted.
And do you think that you push yourself into out of your comfort zone because you've got a message that you want to share, as well as, you're promoting your business, but it's important for you to stand up and be this person that you're looking to be?
Yeah, I think it is because I've held myself back a lot, and know that if I'd done some things a bit more or a bit differently, I might be in a slightly different place with where I am personally in my business now. So I think it is important to sort of practice, what I preach, and certainly my ethos. I think of myself as a WYSIWYG person. What you see is what you get. And I think that's what I'm trying to exemplify in my business as well. So property venture, the strapline is common sense investment. I think when I set out, as I mentioned before, my natural inclination is build relationships with people. I like to deal with people who want to deal with me, and try and find out what it is that they're looking for, and then marry them up with the right property, whether it's a holiday or investment property for them. And for me, that's common sense. It's trying to create a win-win situation. And so that's common sense for me. It's common sense property buying, common sense investment. Just marrying things up in the right way rather than trying to force issues. And yes, I think it is important for me to be out and about conveying that message in the property world, and for me too to be practicing what I preach in terms of breaking down boundaries and pushing myself outside my comfort zone, because that's what I advocate other people do as well.
So you're almost forcing a kind of a level of assertiveness into yourself to sort of be this person you need to be.
Yeah, yes. I think very, very early on, because I was in a different area from a lot of women coming up now and working in property or any other business. Certainly in the workplace that I was in when I first started out, it wasn't an easy workplace for women, and that was quite challenging. And one of the courses, again, it was a simple one-day course I went on with the first company I was employed with, which was an assertiveness course, and that was actually quite a life-changing course, if one day can be life-changing, because I think that trying to be successful in a world that can sometimes be very challenging and difficult can sometimes lead to behaviour that I think maybe might have been, for me, verging on aggressive. And this one course helped me understand the subtleties between being assertive and what might be perceived as being aggressive. And that's, again, something I've tried to embody in my work life, what I do in my personal life, being able to express feelings, how you feel about something without coming across as being aggressive or overly domineering. I think that there's a real skill in that, and it's something that I practice and hone on a daily basis. But I do think there are some very fundamental differences, and it can make life an awful lot easier if you do know how to put something assertively rather than aggressively. And I'm still working on it now.
Oh, life work, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you strike me as being someone who's naturally inquisitive.
Yeah. I think that is very much at the heart of me. I do ask lots of questions, question in my mind why things have got, why things are the way they are. And I suppose it's a constant quest. I love learning. I get an immense amount of satisfaction from continuously learning. And I think I mentioned my degree all those years back was in marketing and French. I am member of I'm a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Marketing, and a chartered marketeer. And part of that, to maintain chartered status, is continuous professional development, CPD. And that fits very naturally with me because I'm always wanting to learn, going on courses, learning something different. And so I think that that's sort of my avaricious nature of learning and picking things up. I always seeking to improve. CPD sits very well with me because it's about continual improvement and always learning and picking up new things. And of course, marketing, when I was at university, there was no digital marketing. So I learned all the principles of marketing at university, but being in business and setting up my own business, I've taught myself about digital marketing and digital branding and how I use a lot of that digital marketing in my own business, working with, PR and getting press coverage, and building social media profiles, learning about search engine optimization. All of that kind of stuff is self-taught by, maybe an hour or two webinars here and there, and then gradually putting it into practice. Because one of the things that I like to do, if I'm going to spend time, on a webinar for an hour or two, my ethos is I've always got to take one thing and put it into practice, or just remember it, or build it into something, because otherwise it's a waste of time if you spend all that time and money going on a course or a program or a workshop and you're not going to take anything from it. Even if there was something I was on last night which was really not probably the best use of my hour of time, but I try and find one thing, even in something that doesn't seem very valuable, that I can take out and use and build into my personal life or my business or whatever. And then I feel as though it's been time well spent.
I think that's a great piece of advice, because it's so easy to absorb knowledge and then carry on doing things the way we were doing them before, and not actually shifting and shaking up the way we do things and applying it in a different way, because obviously that takes effort and we always want to look for the easiest route in everything. And sometimes actually applying something you've learnt and then shaking things up will make things easier going forward, but not at the time. So no, great point.
And we all know how making change and putting yourself in uncomfortable positions and breaking down barriers, how immensely difficult that is, and particularly trying to do it on your own, that sometimes the best way is just to take a small step forward and then get comfortable and then push again. So it's an incremental thing. It's not something you're going to get this sea change overnight. It's about doing small things and then gradually building up over time, which I suspect is a lot of the stuff that you do as well, Amy, with your coaching clients.
Absolutely. It's been wonderful having you on today. Oh my goodness, it's so lovely to see people when they share their why, and they're sort of, actually you can see them going into themselves and saying, oh yes, I am doing the right thing, I am doing this for the right reasons. And it just makes, you can see the dots being connected visibly in front of me. I can, anyway, I can hear it in your voice as well.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because people say, what's your why? And I'm never quite sure I've got the answer to this. I know what it is that's made me make certain decisions and what drives me, but because there are two or three things, I never quite know which is my why, or maybe it's all three of them.
Absolutely, that's for you to decide. And I think
Yeah.
that they are all linked. So yeah, it makes perfect sense to me. So well, yeah, it's great. So again, thank you so much. What would you like to leave as a parting message for the audience, having already given lots of wonderful top tips, and in your story, I think people will be taking quite a few things out of this.
I think it's having a vision of where you want to be and really breaking through barriers to make that happen. Don't let your inner voice hold you back. And it really is the scary thing for me, that vision of, meeting the person that I could have been, and actually wanting desperately for that to be the person that I am or that I'm working towards. I don't want there to be a disconnect. And the only way of getting there, because I know that there's still more I've got to do, is putting myself in uncomfortable positions to make sure that I get there.
Thank you for listening to the Focus on Why podcast. I'm Amy Rowlandson, and if you've enjoyed this episode, please leave me a 5-star Apple Podcast review. Connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram and Facebook, and become a member of my inspiring, uplifting and positive Focus on Why Facebook group. I help people to focus on their why with clarity, uniting their passion with their purpose with a plan to create the life they truly desire. If you would like me to help you focus on your why, then please book a free 20-minute coaching call via calendly.com/Amy Rowlandson. And if you haven't already, please sign up for the Friday Focus weekly newsletter via my website, amyrowlandson.com. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why.